July 9th, 1944. Royal Naval Hospital, Sefton. A 48-year-old captain lay dying in a sterile white room overlooking Liverpool Bay. His face had become skeletal, the bones sharp beneath skin that hung loose and gray. Officers who'd served beside him for years barely recognized the haggard figure in the hospital bed, his breathing shallow, his eyes closed against a pain no morphine could touch. 2 days earlier, 2 letters had arrived from the Admiralty. The first confirmed his son was dead, lost when submarine HMS Parthenon vanished without trace in the Mediterranean. The second ordered his group to sail the next morning for combat operations in the Channel. That evening, Captain Frederic John Walker felt dizzy, heard a humming sound rising in his skull, and collapsed before he could reach his cabin door. Walker would die of cerebral thrombosis without ever regaining consciousness. The Admiralty would officially attribute his death to conditions of naval service, to overwork, to exhaustion, to the grinding demands of 4 years of relentless combat. What they didn't say in the official report was this: Captain Frederic John Walker had destroyed 20 German U-boats under his direct command, more than any other Allied surface ship commander in history. His flagship HMS Starling participated in 14 confirmed kills, earning recognition as the most successful anti-submarine ship ever built. In one 19-day patrol during February 1944, his group sank 6 U-boats, including 3 in just 15 hours. The man who more than any other won the Battle of the Atlantic drove himself to death doing it. By March 1943, Britain was losing the Battle of the Atlantic catastrophically. U-boats were sinking merchant ships faster than Allied shipyards could build replacements. In the first 20 days of March alone, German submarines destroyed 97 Allied vessels, totaling more than 500,000 tons. Britain needed to import 1 million tons of supplies weekly just to survive food, fuel, ammunition, aircraft, tanks, everything required to keep 47 million people alive and fighting. U-boats were destroying that much every 3 weeks. Churchill would later admit that the U-boat threat was the only thing that truly frightened him during the entire war. Not the Blitz, not Rommel in North Africa, not the possibility of German invasion. The silent war in the Atlantic, where British merchant seamen died in freezing water far from home. If the Atlantic convoys failed, Britain would starve within months. The Soviet Union would collapse without American supplies reaching Murmansk. Operation Overlord would become impossible without the massive buildup of men and materiel in British ports. The fundamental problem wasn't finding U-boats. By 1943, convoy escorts carried a SDIC, the British sonar system that could detect submerged submarines at ranges up to 3,000 yards. Ships had radar that could spot a surfaced U-boat at 3 miles. They carried depth charges designed to crush a submarine's pressure hull through sheer concussive force. But knowing where a U-boat was and killing it were 2 entirely different problems. Aztec only worked if you moved slowly, no faster than 15 knots, because at higher speeds, the ship's propeller noise overwhelmed the delicate listening equipment. An ASDIC surged forward while depth charges were dropped astern, creating a blind spot of roughly 300 yards where the escort lost contact with the submarine just as it reached attack position. Skilled U-boat commanders exploited this gap with ruthless efficiency, making radical evasive turns the moment contact was lost. diving deeper than British depth charge settings, releasing chemical decoys called Pillenwerfer that created false echoes. Standard depth charge attacks achieved roughly a 6% kill rate. Most escorts went the entire war without sinking a single U-boat. Admiral Karl Dönitz, commander of Germany's U-boat fleet, understood the mathematics perfectly. If each U-boat sank more tonnage than it cost Germany to build before being destroyed, Germany would win the war of attrition. By early 1943, he was winning that calculation. For every U-boat lost, Germany destroyed 20 merchant ships. The man who would solve this problem should never have been at sea. Frederic John Walker was born June 3, 1896, in Plymouth to Commander Frederic Murray Walker of the Royal Navy. He entered Osborne Naval College at 13, passed out fourth in order of merit among 62 midshipmen in April 1913, winning the King's Medal. Walker served through the First World War in battleship HMS Ajax and destroyers HMS Mermaid and Sarpedon. Between the wars, he volunteered for the new anti-submarine school, HMS Osprey, at Portland. Anti-submarine warfare was considered unfashionable, offering little prospect for advancement in a navy that still dreamed of battleship engagements. By 1937, Walker had reached commander and received appointment as experimental commander at Osprey, developing new tactics and equipment, but his career had stalled completely. Why was an officer of such evident ability passed over for captain and scheduled for early retirement as war approached? The answer appears to lie in personality. Walker was outspoken, easily bored by peacetime routine, unable to suffer fools or hide his contempt for meaningless bureaucracy. His fitness reports reflected friction with peacetime naval bureaucracy. War's outbreak in September 1939 saved him from forced retirement, but even then the Navy kept him ashore. It took until October 1941, more than 2 years after war began before the Royal Navy's leading anti-submarine expert finally received a ship command. His first combat command proved his superiors catastrophically wrong. Taking the 36th Escort Group and sloop HMS Stork to escort convoy HG 76 from Gibraltar in December 1941, Walker orchestrated what became the first true Allied convoy victory. His group sank 4 U-boats during the running battle, with Walker personally depth-charging and ramming U-574, but one successful convoy didn't change doctrine. The Royal Navy still assigned escorts to defend convoys, not hunt submarines. Walker wanted something different. In early 1943, he proposed a radical concept to Commander-in-Chief Western approaches, Admiral Sir Max Horton. Given 6 first-line sloops with the most modern equipment, operating with a roving commission, free to actively hunt and destroy U-boats rather than merely escort convoys. The distinction was fundamental. Convoy escorts were defensive, tied to the convoy, limited in engagement time. Walker envisioned something offensive, support groups that could pursue a U-boat for hours or days, maintaining contact until the submarine's batteries died and it was forced to surface. Horton approved. The second support group was born. HMS Starling emerged from Fairfield shipbuilding yards in Govan, Scotland, on October 14, 1942. A modified Black Swan-class sloop, she displaced 1,350 tons standard, 1,900 tons fully loaded. Length of 299 feet 6 inches, beam of 38 feet 6 inches. Twin Parsons geared steam turbines generated 4,300 shaft horsepower, driving her to 19.5 knots fast enough to overhaul any surfaced Type 7 U-boat. Her range of 7,500 nautical miles at 12 knots meant she could operate across the entire Atlantic without refueling. Her armament prioritized submarine destruction above all else. 6 quick-firing 4-inch Mark 16 dual-purpose guns in 3 twin turrets. Anti-aircraft defense included a quadruple 2-pounder POM and 12 20mm Oerlikon cannon. But her real killing power lay in anti-submarine weapons. 110 depth charges, 4 depth charge throwers, 2 stern racks, and crucially the Hedgehog forward-throwing mortar. Hedgehog proved transformative. Unlike depth charges that exploded at preset depths regardless of whether they hit anything, Hedgehog projectiles were contact-fused. 24 spigot-launched bombs arced ahead of the ship in an elliptical pattern. They only exploded on hitting something solid. No explosion meant the U-boat was missed, but a SDIC contact remained intact. Standard depth charge attacks achieved roughly 5 to 7% success rates. Hedgehog attacks achieved 20 to 25% success, approximately 3 to 5 times more effective. Walker commissioned Starling in April 1943 and immediately began the most intensive training program any escort group had ever experienced. He developed a system of prearranged signal codes. Buttercup Stern meant one thing, Raspberry Port meant another. His captains learned to read his mind, to anticipate his intentions from minimal communication. But the real innovation, the tactic that would make Walker legendary, was the creeping attack. The creeping attack eliminated a SDIC's blind spot entirely. The directing ship, usually Starling, maintained a SDIC contact from 1,500 yards, remaining stationary or moving very slowly. A second ship approached the target silently with ASTIC switched off, creeping at only 5 knots slow enough that its propeller noise was minimal. The directing ship provided continuous voice guidance on course corrections. When the attacking ship was positioned directly over the target, Walker gave the signal. Depth charges arrived without warning. The U-boat's first indication of attack was explosions tearing through the water around its hull. The tactic required exceptional coordination, extensive practice, and patience that most commanders lacked. Walker's hunts often lasted 8 to 18 hours, consuming 150 to 260 depth charges in methodical, relentless attacks. But where standard depth charge attacks achieved approximately 5 to 7% kill probability, Walker's coordinated tactics achieved devastating success. He supplemented the creeping attack with the plaster attack, 3 or more sloops approaching in line abreast, all launching depth charges simultaneously to saturate the target area. His operating instructions to his group stated the philosophy clearly. Our object is to kill, and all officers must fully develop the spirit of vicious offensive. No matter how many convoys we may shepherd through in safety, we shall have failed unless we slaughter U-boats. The killing began June 1st to 2nd, 1943, when Starling destroyed U-2 after a 15-hour hunt. Commander Gunter Poser took his boat to 800 feet, beyond British depth charge settings. Walker waited, reportedly saying, "We will sit it out. I estimate this chap will surface at midnight." Poser surfaced just before midnight. Walker illuminated with star shells. The U-boat commander shot himself rather than surrender. On June 24, 1943, Starling sank U-119 by ramming and depth charges. All 57 German crew were lost. That same day, the group sank U-449. The July 30th action demonstrated Walker's aggressive philosophy at its purest. Encountering 3 surfaced U-boats transiting in company for mutual anti-aircraft protection, Walker hoisted the signal General Chase, giving his captains license to pursue and destroy at will. In 10 minutes, his group destroyed U-462, a Type 14 milk cow supply submarine, and U-504. Germany lost 2 of its irreplaceable supply submarines in one action. Then came the patrol that would enter naval history as the greatest concentrated anti-submarine success of the war, January 29, 1944. Walker's Second Support Group departed Liverpool for what would become known as the 6-in-1 Trip Patrol. The group comprised Starling, Wild Goose, Woodpecker, Magpie, and Kite. January 31st, the group detected U-592 on the surface. The submarine crash-dived. Walker commenced a creeping attack. Wild Goose and Magpie coordinated the kill. 49 German submariners died. February 8th arrived. At 1630 hours, Huffduff detected a U-boat transmission. At 2000 hours, radar contact. U-762 was on the surface charging batteries. Woodpecker and Wild Goose attacked. The submarine crash-dived. Walker directed a coordinated assault lasting 3 hours. U-762 was destroyed. 51 Germans died. Walker didn't break off. His Huff-Duff operators detected another transmission nearby. Multiple U-boats were gathering, probably forming a patrol line to intercept an expected convoy. February 9th, 0230 hours. Contact. U-734 was submerged. Wild Goose held a SDIC contact. Starling crept in silently. At 0315, Walker gave the order. Depth charges bracketed the U-boat. Oil and debris surfaced. 49 more Germans dead. Walker should have broken off. His ships had been at action stations for nearly 10 hours. Crews were exhausted. Depth charge stocks were depleting. He pressed on. 800 hours, same morning. Another contact. U-238, also submerged. This U-boat's commander was skilled, evaded the first attack, went deep, released Pillenwerfer decoys. Walker coordinated Kite, Magpie, and Starling in a plaster attack. The hunt lasted 8 hours, 15 separate attacks. The 3 ships expended 260 depth charges between them. At 1600 hours, U-238 surfaced, crew abandoning ship. 3 U-boats destroyed in 15 hours. 149 German submariners killed. The patrol continued. February 11th, U-424 destroyed. February 19th, the group detected U-264, equipped with a new snorkel underwater breathing device. After a prolonged hunt, Woodpecker and Starling forced her to surface. All 52 crew survived and were captured, revealing details of snorkel technology to British intelligence. 6 U-boats destroyed in 19 days. 299 German submariners killed. 52 captured. Walker returned to Liverpool on February 25th to a hero's welcome, but he allowed himself no rest. By March 15th, he was at sea again. March 15th, 1944. U-653 destroyed. March 29th. U-961 destroyed by Starling alone during Arctic convoy escort. May 6th. U-473 sunk after a 3-day search and 18-hour hunt, with Walker accurately predicting where the U-boat would surface. Admiral Carl Dunitz addressed U-boat losses directly in his war diaries. After Black May 1943, when 43 U-boats were lost, including several to Walker's group, Dunitz wrote, "A frightful total which came as a hard and unexpected blow. We had lost the Battle of the Atlantic." He ordered a temporary halt to operations on May 24, 1943, the only time in the entire war that the U-boat campaign was suspended. German U-boat service ultimately suffered a 75% casualty rate, the highest of any German armed forces branch. Of 859 U-boats that sailed on war patrols, 648 were lost. 429 yielded no survivors whatsoever. Walker's final operations came during D-Day. For 2 weeks in June 1944, his group protected the invasion fleet from U-boat attack. Not a single U-boat penetrated his screen, but the physical toll was devastating. Officers noticed he hesitated, searching for words. His face looked skeletal, his body gaunt. July 7, 1944. Walker received 2 letters from the Admiralty. The first confirmed that his son Timothy was officially declared dead. The second ordered his group to sail the next day. That evening he felt unwell dizzy, with a humming sound in his head. He was admitted to Royal Naval Hospital at Sefton. Captain Frederic John Walker died of cerebral thrombosis on July 9, 1944. He was 48 years old. His funeral at Liverpool Cathedral drew approximately 1,000 mourners. His coffin was embarked aboard HMS Hesperus for burial at sea in Liverpool Bay. Admiral Sir Max Horton's funeral address captured Walker's contribution. "In the days when the waters had well-nigh overwhelmed us, our brother, apprehending the creative power in man, set himself to conquer the malice of the enemy. In our hour of need he was a doughty protector of them that sail the seas on our behalf. By war's end the complete tally stood clear." Captain Walker's commands destroyed 20 German U-boats between December 1941 and July 1944. HMS Starling participated in 14 confirmed kills, earning recognition from Guinness World Records as the most successful anti-submarine ship in history. The second support group's total reached 22 U-boats, the most successful anti-submarine unit of the entire war. The Admiralty's official conclusion stated, "Captain Walker, more than any other, won the Battle of the Atlantic. His tactical innovations became doctrine fleet-wide. The creeping attack, the plaster attack, the aggressive hunter-killer philosophy all spread through the Royal Navy's escort forces." Yet compared to other naval figures of comparable importance, Walker remained surprisingly obscure. He died before war's end, missing victory celebrations. Anti-submarine warfare, conducted in fog and darkness against invisible enemies, lacks dramatic visual quality. There was no single dramatic battle to capture public imagination. The Battle of the Atlantic was, in Churchill's assessment, the only thing that ever really frightened me during the war. Britain's survival depended on Atlantic convoys. Germany's best chance of victory lay in severing those supply lines. Captain Frederic John Walker turned that tide. His 20 U-boats destroyed represent approximately 2.5% of all U-boats lost during the war, achieved by one commander with a handful of ships. Walker's signature tune, "A Hunting We Will Go," played over Starling's tonneau whenever she entered or left port. It captured his philosophy perfectly. Not defense, but attack. Not protection, but destruction. Not survival, but victory. In the deadliest sustained campaign of World War II, no one hunted more effectively than Captain Johnny Walker. The man who killed more U-boats than any commander in history never saw the victory he'd made inevitable. He died at 48, exhausted, his son already lost, his body consumed by the war he'd helped win.